I don't normally talk about videos having to do with stupid, racist, and bigoted and prejudicial individuals because they get their comeuppance, right? So we have a story here from the Daily Mail. A Texas teacher is fired after she was caught on camera launching vile racist rant at a Muslim woman in grocery store car park and yelling, "Get the F back to your country, B." I don't typically talk about these things because this is justice, in my opinion. I think there's some interesting implications in someone being fired over their speech in public. But in this instance, it was a woman who was being hateful. And in my opinion, look, this is the great American melting pot. I believe people shouldn't be attacked based on their race, identity. They shouldn't be told to go back to their country. We are a country that welcomes immigrants. We are a country that should and has in the past had border security that would restrict illegal immigration. But we are one of the most accepting of immigrants for any nation in the world. You look at Japan and China, and they're very much like, nah, we're not going to do that. You look at the US, and we do a great job. So that means I find it very important that we should respect people of different cultures. And when I want to make sure this distinction is clear, too, because what people on the left and the right refer to as multiculturalism is very different. People on the left believe multiculturalism is that you can have New York City with Chinatown, or I'll use Chicago as a better example because I'm from Chicago. You can have Chinatown, Little Italy, Ukrainian Village, these different cultures existing side by side peacefully. That can happen because there's an umbrella culture, which is American culture, above, which says freedom of speech, religion, press, etc. The right-wing view of multiculturalism would be American culture side by side next to these other countries or other cultures. And that's typically not how the left views it. Whether or not you think it could or couldn't work, that's not the point I'm trying to make, just that the right and the left differ on this. When I see someone who is Muslim and wants to go about their business, I literally think nothing. I don't see them and think like, oh, who is this? What are they? I don't know. I grew up in Chicago. I grew up in a really mixed area we have different cultural areas. It's just the way it is. So when I see a story about this, I typically just say, yeah, okay, sure. A teacher got in the face of someone, started screaming at her. It was filmed, and now she's being dragged for it. Okay. Like everybody gets dragged for dumb things. Ilhan Omar said a bunch of stupid things, and people got mad at her, and she had to apologize for it. There you go. She didn't get censured, right? Her free speech isn't being threatened. But at the same time, while Ilhan Omar said things that were offensive, she didn't get up in someone's face and start screaming and yelling at them, which probably would get her in trouble. She just said things people didn't like. She apologized. That's how it works. When people talk about the freedom of speech and freedom from consequence on the left, they don't really understand what we're saying. Look, we understand as people who advocate for free speech that you might get fired for your job for going out in the street and getting in someone's face and yelling this sentence at them, right? And flicking them off. It's not necessarily because of the ideas you hold. It's because you're a dick. And your company is going to be like, you make us look bad. Goodbye. There was a woman named Audria Richards. She was a social justice activist. She eavesdropped on these two guys who were making stupid jokes at a conference, shamed them, got the guy fired, and then she got fired. The reason was she made her company look bad. Period. The issue arises when you're being banned from public discourse. Banned. This woman is not like she didn't make a statement at her school. She got into the face of a woman and she made herself look bad. And so there you go. She's now losing her job. While I think there's interesting arguments to be made as to whether or not she should lose her job over this, I understand why it happened. And I wouldn't respect this if it was going in either direction. One of the reasons I found this story really interesting is that it seemed like a bunch of conservatives were I don't want to say celebrating, but in agreement with her termination, saying you can respect free speech, but this is not America. This is not American behavior to get in someone's face and scream at them when they're minding their own business. Well, we should probably read the story. I've been ranting. A Texas teacher was filmed launching a vile racist and xenophobic rant against a Muslim woman in a grocery store parking lot, and her explicit tirade cost her job. Mai Muhammad was in the parking lot of a Kroger store in West Houston on Sunday when the female teacher approached her and started shouting at her, targeting her hijab. Muhammad had been living in Houston for the past 3 years on a visa from Egypt with her husband and 4 children. She says she was filling her water bottle outside a store when the unidentified woman allegedly stared at her, approached her, and began to berate her. One important thing. We always need to make sure we have evidence. And one of the bits of nuance here is that it may be that maybe the woman filming started it. I don't know. I'm not gonna go in that direction because we go by what footage we have. But I would admittedly be more likely to. I'm more reticent to punish people over these things than others. Here's the thing: the difference between, say, this Jussie Smollett or the Covington kids. People were attacking the Covington kids because the kid was Nick Samuel was just standing there. He wasn't doing anything, and they were attacking him for it. And I'm like, that's insane. This is a little different. This is a woman who's clearly yelling in a woman's face and saying these things on film, in which case I'm like, okay, well, you're actually doing a thing here. Whether or not that absolves anyone else of their responsibility or the greater context of the circumstance, we would need the evidence, and okay, we should look into it. But I think, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, conservatives and liberals alike see this and say, yeah, we're not going to defend her. She's a nasty person. Don't be mean and don't be awful and don't get in people's faces and scream at them. This is why, okay, this is going to be a deviation, but this is the complaint against Antifa. It's fine if Antifa wants to show up and wave their little flags and protest, in my opinion. It's fine if Trump supporters want to show up and wave their little fat flags and protest. The problem arises when Antifa invades the space of people minding their own business, screaming and yelling, and then attacking people. Now, I don't believe this woman actually ever physically assaulted this woman, but she certainly still crosses that line. She deserves no protection, nor does Antifa or anyone who's willing to violate the personal space and civil rights, like maybe life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of another individual. I will not respect that. What I want to make sure is clear in this video is that the point I'm trying to make is I typically don't talk about stupid women like this who get in other people's faces screaming because, yeah, so what? She got what's coming to her. She came out and she was a mean person. She was awful. There you go. And the media covers it all day and night. Whenever we hear stories about these stupid people who are racist or make stupid phone calls or call the cops on people who did nothing wrong, the media covers it far and wide. And I say, okay, there you go. But the media doesn't cover when Antifa does it for the most part. I want to see some balance. I want to see people acting on principle and saying, this woman deserves no defense for being a mean person and being bigoted and prejudicial or whatever. And I want to hear the same thing for the dude in Portland who got who whacked a Bernie voter over the head with a club for having an American flag. That's what I want to see, consistency. So for me, when I see stories like this, typically I'm like, yeah, okay. There you go. It's been reported. And when I see stories about Antifa, I'm like, where's the news? Where's the media who's going to hold them to the same standard? They don't do it. So I have no problem doing it. And that means from time to time, I want to make sure this is explicitly clear as to why I will focus on particular issues. You want to know why I take issue with so much of what the left is doing? I also take issue with what the right is doing. And I clarify that in a lot of my videos. The one thing I really don't like is ivory tower elitism and hypocrisy. So when the media only comes out dragging conservatives, I'm like, yeah, okay, drag the left. Like, why are you ignoring this? Right? When Twitter bans the Proud Boys, I say, sure, whatever. I'm not going to, hold water for them. But why aren't you banning Antifa? They're in the street fights too. It's complete and total hypocrisy. Now, I will say, obviously, I err on the side of free speech and not banning people. So there are certain circumstances where, in the past, when they banned Lauren Southern from Patreon, I questioned why they didn't go the other direction with It's Going Down. Excuse me. And then everyone started saying that I was, excuse me. Everyone started saying that I was targeting this website when I wasn't. I was asking a legitimate question. So when Sargon got banned, I didn't do the same thing in the other direction. I didn't start dropping names specifically, although I did allude to certain groups and asked why they weren't being banned. And of course, I got no response. The concern was that if I talked to Patreon and said, why won't you ban these you're biased, they would just go and ban people. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want anyone to get banned. I think the censorship is a problem. But anyway, I'm going to start coughing again. Excuse me. So let's read this. Mohammed whipped out her phone to record the tirade and replies in a shaky voice. Again, please. Oh, I'll put it on social media. When an employee says something to the two yelling women, the woman says, this lowlife needs to go back to her country. Mohammed then filmed the store employee stationed at the front of Kroger saying, did you hear what she said? Did you hear? The employee asked what she said, adding, y'all need to carry along. I need you to get off the camera rather than listening to her as she shakily tries to explain the verbal assault. I'm in Kroger. That's what happened. Bad woman and one also bad worker tell me like this. I felt hate when she looked at me. I don't know why, Mohammed said to the Houston Chronicle. Is it possible The woman filming did something that escalated. It's true. Yeah, maybe. But based on how long she's been in the country, and it seems that English is her second language, I wouldn't think so. I will also add, there are certain people who try to start the fight and then film the reaction. This is a known propaganda tactic. Again, I really don't think so. In this circumstance, I think what happened is, actually, I'll put it this way. Whatever happened, the response from this woman to get in her face and scream about her and target her for being, a migrant or for wearing a hijab is absolutely wrong. And she is going to reap her the consequences of that. It frustrates me when people say, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequence. And it's like, sure, like no one's arguing. That means nothing, right? When we're talking about being censored on Twitter, we're talking about a public platform where people can influence discourse and having an opinion. When it comes to being out in the street, violating someone, look, in Illinois, this would be a crime. Getting in someone's personal space, yelling them and forcing them back is actually assault. It is. There is a difference between going up to someone unprovoked, screaming in their face, and saying mean things on the internet. So anyway, I'll wrap up there. It's whatever. Stick around. I'll have more videos tomorrow starting at 10 a.m. I'm going to go cough for about an hour. I'll see you tomorrow.